Wave after wave of Europeans have migrated to our shores since Champlain's arrival. Now, nearly 500,000 Canadians, including thousands of Indigenous soldiers, traveled to Europe to serve beside our allies in the First World War. Bravery and sacrifice defines our new nation. We are explorers, risk-takers, and dreamers, fighting the odds in a land of extremes. Across a vast continent, we build a nation. Truly strong and free. August 1914. War erupts across Europe. As a British Dominion, Canada automatically joins in the fight. A young country seeking to find its place on the world stage. Within 6 weeks, 33,000 Canadians volunteer. Few of them with any military training for the violence they would soon face.
They were farmers and fishermen and teachers and bus drivers and, and suddenly they were called upon with relatively short training to be killing machines. And they did it not for a couple of weeks, they did it for years.
Only 8 months into the war, Germany controls more than 95% of Belgium. The 1st Canadian Division is about to face its first major engagement, joining the Allied line to stop the enemy from claiming the rest of Belgium. The battle will unfold near the town of Ypres. The untested Canadian troops are outnumbered, outgunned. The German machine gun can spit out 400 bullets a minute.
Of course they were scared to death, all of them was just scared to death. Nobody who went into World War I on either side was experienced or had had any experience to that level of mechanization of warfare.
Among those braving the horror is Francis Pegamagabo, a 25-year-old Anishinaabe from Wasauksing Nation on Georgian Bay, Ontario. Pegamagabo volunteers just days after war is declared. He carries a medicine bag meant to protect him, a gift from an elder.
He met a medicine man not long before he joined the army and joined the war, who told him, "Your life is going to change soon. You're going to become something great." If you grow up hunting, you grow up trapping, you grow up shooting, you're going to be good at this thing called war.
Fast and agile, he's assigned the job of messenger. Pegamagabo must relay battlefield tactics from Central Command to the most vulnerable soldiers at the front.
Colonel Creighton, right lines. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
They had telephone lines, but of course artillery bombardments tore up all the telephone wires. They had rudimentary wireless, they used signals, they used lights, but nothing was as effective, of course, as the human runner.
As a runner, Pegamagabo is an open target for enemy fire.
Running through the trenches while everyone else is taking cover takes a tremendous amount of courage.
Where's the colonel? Down that way.
Very few of those soldiers survived. Pegamagabo was one of them.
Get this back to command as fast as you can.
Soon, Pegamagabo will run into the most horrifying weapon of World War I. April 22nd, 1915. The Germans launched the world's first large-scale gas attack.
That death cloud, about 6 kilometers long, of choking gas rolled through 2 French divisions to the north of the Canadians, and those 2 divisions fled.
Pegamagabo and the 1st Canadian Division are engulfed by 160 tons of deadly chlorine gas.
Gas changes everything. Chemical warfare changes everything.
Soldiers gasp for breath as the gas reacts with the moisture in their lungs and transforms to flesh-eating hydrochloric acid. 9 Canadian troops die instantly.
We sent people in with 19th century formation and 19th century battle tactics into a 20th century hell.
It was ironic because it was the gentleman's war, supposedly, and it turned into this real bloodbath.
Those who are not killed are disabled, easy targets in the barrage of German bullets. Pegamagabo survives, and he gets a critical field reassignment.
Got a job for you. What have you got for me, sir?
His new mission is to target German gunners plaguing Canadian troops. Pegamagabo is an uncommonly good shot, sniper material. He dashes through no man's land, eluding enemy gunners. Patient. Focused. Motionless. He waits for just the right shot.
You have to have a completely different psyche to be a sniper. They will go to extreme lengths, climbing inside the carcass of a dead horse and waiting for 2 days to make that one kill. Not every soldier wants to do that. Not every soldier can do that. I think that's what sets them apart.
The Battle of Second Ypres claims 2,000 Canadian soldiers. More than 4,000 are wounded. But in a stunning reversal, the rookie Canadians hold the Germans back, prevailing against the first major gas attack in the history of warfare. For the first time, a colonial force triumphs against a European power on European soil.
The Canadians made their name, forged their reputation, and one that they would carry forward into the fighting over the next 3.5 years.
Pegamagabo establishes his reputation as a formidable warrior. In the next 4 years, he racks up 378 sniper kills, more than any other Allied or German soldier.
The average lifespan of a sniper in World War I was about 6 weeks if you were lucky. Francis survived the whole, not just survived the whole war, but became the deadliest sniper of that war.
His courage at Ypres earns him the Military Medal, an honor he's awarded twice more during the war, making him the most decorated Indigenous soldier in Canadian military history. When he returns home, Pegamagabo turns his fighting spirit to the battle for Indigenous rights, becoming chief of Wasauksing. He helps establish a national organization to focus the many voices of Indigenous peoples across Canada. Today, we call that organization the Assembly of First Nations. The success at Ypres emboldens other Canadians to volunteer. Within 2 years of the battle, 300,000 new recruits ship overseas.
In the early days, you could not sign up people fast enough. They could not get uniforms on them fast enough, so that the enlistment rates were extraordinarily high. It was a national project.
Our grit and determination to serve makes for fearsome and fearless soldiers. Canadians raise trench raiding to a grim art. sneaking into enemy dugouts across the front line. Their mission? Capture German prisoners and secret documents to reveal enemy plans.
Canadians proved to be very good at creeping through no man's land, raiding the German trenches, and if they were lucky, getting back okay.
The intelligence these soldiers bring back is crucial to the greatest Canadian general of the war, Arthur William Currie. Currie's genius will emerge when 4 Canadian divisions fight as one in the most famous battle of our nation's history, Vimy Ridge. In northern France, rising above fields of wheat and potatoes, the 7-kilometer Vimy Ridge offers a clear view of the surrounding terrain. Early in the war, the Germans captured the ridge and turned it into a strategic stronghold, riddled with barbed wire, connected by 16 kilometers of tunnels, and defended by dozens of machine gun posts. French and British troops have tried for 3 years to recapture the ridge. Now, it's the Canadians' turn.
Taking Vimy Ridge was very important. As long as the Germans were there, they had an unparalleled vantage point over the Allied lines.
5 kilometers behind Vimy, the 4 divisions of the Canadian Corps rehearse their attack. For the first time, 100,000 men from across our nation will fight as a unified force.
Up to that point, we had been filling in British battalions and filling in British divisions. And for the Canadians to fight as a single, unified force, I think imbued everybody with a sense of purpose that they otherwise might not have had.
A driving force behind these training sessions is 1st Division Commander Arthur Currie.
That's what I want. That's much better.
Currie has pushed for new battlefield tactics. He uses intelligence reports, captured by trench raiding parties, to construct detailed battlefield mock-ups. This way, common soldiers know exactly where German defenses are located when they attack. Unlike other generals in the First World War, Currie has no professional training.
Some of the best generals in the war came from non-military backgrounds. I mean, Arthur Currie had been an insurance salesman, and not a very successful insurance salesman at that before the First World War.
As an outsider, Currie brings unconventional thinking to the deadly challenges at Vimy.
He had a good mind for warfare. He studied the lessons of battle, what worked, what had failed.
Previous Allied attacks relied on frontal assault. Waves of infantry charging en masse, with catastrophic results. 150,000 dead and wounded. Currie advances a different plan.
Arthur Currie understood that you did not just throw men into that sort of chaos and expect to achieve anything.
It's called the creeping barrage. First, artillery troops shell German defenses.
Advance!
Then,
Hold!
infantry move in.
Hold! Advance!
Artillery and infantry will attack the ridge in tandem
Halt!
and push the Germans back.
Too slow. Do it again.
Bring it back down!
It was extraordinarily important that it succeed for all sorts of different reasons. Militarily, yes, but also just for us. We had to stand on our own 2 feet out from under the shadow of the colonial power.
In another break from tradition, battle plans are reviewed by everyone.
As you were.
From senior officers down to platoon and section commanders.
If they are 1 minute too late, the objective is lost.
Currie believes even privates should understand the details of the attack, so they are empowered to make decisions if their commanding officer is lost in battle.
He believed that the individual soldier was important, and that it'd be important that he understand his role in that, so that if something goes wrong, he can also fill in that gap. And it made our fighting unit extremely tight.
April 9th, 1917. 5:30 a.m. The Canadian battle plan goes into effect. The fury of 983 artillery guns is unleashed on the Germans, forcing them into their dugouts and bunkers. The shelling is so loud, it's heard in England 200 kilometers away.
The Germans are being torn up by artillery shells. It's a cacophony of explosions. The soldiers talk about this almost pure wall of sound.
Moments later, an initial wave of 20,000 Canadians set out to reclaim Vimy Ridge. They head straight into the deadly sights of enemy snipers and machine gunners.
The Canadians are being punched down by sniper fire as they march and fight their way up the ridge.
Among those storming the ridge is junior officer Captain Thane McDowell. A star athlete at the University of Toronto, he's brought strength and courage to the battlefield. In the chaos, McDowell and two privates are separated from the rest of their battalion. McDowell doesn't falter. He is determined to reach the German bunkers.
Junior officers like Thane McDowell, were told to keep going. Take whoever you've got and get to that final objective.
He leads his soldiers forward, tracking down a group of Germans who seek cover in a bunker from the artillery barrage.
Most people will walk in the opposite direction of something that can hurt them. And I think a soldier, even if he's scared, he believes what he's about to do is going to change the course of the history. We call that courage.
McDowell goes in after them, alone. Privates Arthur Hay and James Kobus wait outside. McDowell comes face to face with 75 enemy soldiers.
Private! Have the battalion make ready to receive prisoners!
He concocts a daring deception.
Yes, sir! Battalion ready, sir!
Acting as if there's an entire Canadian battalion waiting to take the Germans prisoner.
All right, let's go. You three, come on, let's go. Move, move, move!
Let's come.
Go, go, go!
McDowell sends the Germans out in groups of 12.
Go, go!
So Hay and Kobus can keep them subdued.
Move, go, go, go! Come on, let's go, move, move, move! Go, go! Come on! Let's go, guys, to the left, come on the hill, on the hill! Go!
We were the most feared of the Allied forces that they went up against. There are lots of stories of German resistance, but then seeing our patches, that it was Canadian troops that would throw their guns down and put their hands up. We were ferocious.
Let's go, guys, to the left, come on the hill, on the
By
hill!
nightfall on April 12th, Canadian soldiers take the entire ridge, finally seizing strategically crucial Vimy from the Germans.
The Canadians, under the command of probably the most innovative general in World War I, Sir Arthur Currie, our general, took Vimy Ridge in 3 days, a feat that had defied the French and the British for 3 years.
And all of a sudden, here are the Canadians standing on Vimy Ridge, standing tall and proud. And the rest of the world looked around and saw Canada as capable of accomplishing things that nobody else could.
McDowell is one of 4 Canadians at Vimy to be awarded the Victoria Cross. the Commonwealth's most prestigious award for valor. But he's the only one of those 4 men to survive the war. General Currie is promoted to commander of the entire Canadian Corps.
This was the commander of Canada's primary fighting force, 100,000 soldiers strong, where he is widely regarded as one of the finest generals on the Western Front.
The Canadian victory boosts Allied morale, but it comes at great cost. 7,000 wounded, 3,600 dead. In gratitude, France gives 100 hectares of its land to Canada as the site of a Vimy memorial. But the war is far from over. And by 1918, the Allied powers face a new enemy: starvation. The farms of Europe are blood-stained and battle-scarred after 4 years of fighting.
But often we only focus on the front lines. But of course, the war had a tremendous impact on Canada's home front. And we were playing an absolutely crucial role in feeding the Western armies. We were an agricultural nation.
In April, the British Ministry of Food sends a cable. Can Canada please send more wheat? But with 250,000 men on the battlefield, there are fewer hands to work the land back home. Britain's call for help will be answered by a brand new group of recruits: teenage schoolboys. Spring 1918. Kelvin Technical High School, Winnipeg.
All right, gentlemen, quiet down. We've got a very important guest speaker today.
9th grader Jerry Andrews has uncles and cousins fighting in Europe. He's too young to enlist, but he's about to be offered the chance to do his part at home. Britain asks Canada to increase wheat shipments, but Allied commanders are also desperate for reinforcements on the battlefield. Canada's 8th Prime Minister, Robert Borden, has made a controversial decision that will divide the country. In late 1917, Borden's conscription law drafts Canadian men into the army. Farmers feel they're already serving by feeding the troops. They win an exemption. But in the spring of 1918, the war machine needs soldiers more than wheat. Over 40,000 Canadian farmers must leave their fields behind and join the fight in Europe. Now, schoolboys are being recruited as farmhands to replace them. Soldiers of the soil who will keep Canadian grain flowing overseas.
Who will do their bit?
"14-year-old Andrews is one of 22,000 teenagers who sign up.
There was a glamour of sorts for soldiers of the soil. Their fathers, their older brothers, their teachers, they had gone off to war, they had enlisted. And here was an opportunity for these teenagers on the home front to also contribute to the war effort.
Andrews finds himself in a strange, tough world, far from comfort.
It was my first experience away from home among strangers.
You the Andrews boy?
Yes, sir.
His boss, Frank Grain, must teach this city boy in mere weeks what most farmhands spend their whole lives learning.
My introduction to work began at 6 a.m. the day after arrival. Out to the barn sharp.
Keep those reins tight!
Feed and water the animals. Clean out the stalls.
Andrews works 15-hour days, planting and harvesting wheat for just $30 a month. His biggest challenge? The elements. southern Manitoba is part of Canada's Tornado Alley.
Day turned to night. Flying gravel stung like buckshot.
Violent storms dump torrential rain and hail the size of baseballs.
As suddenly as it started, the wind abated. The dust settled. Daylight returned. Like a bad dream, the storm receded.
His work is of direct benefit to the soldiers who are fighting and who are just trying to keep body and soul together.
The wheat Andrews helps grow will be loaded onto a cargo ship in Port Arthur. More than 29 million bushels are shipped down the Great Lakes, through the Welland Canal, out the St. Lawrence, and across the Atlantic to feed our hungry allies.
They're dependent on produce from Canada. And so this kid can know that's going into somebody's stomach, and that is marching. So he's making a direct difference.
Most soldiers of the soil head home after a 3-month term.
You're doing it.
But Jerry stays on for 6.
Good job.
Wartime wheat production helps transform the fledgling Canadian wheat industry into a global force. Today, Canada is one of the world's top exporters of wheat. $6.2 billion annually. The faraway war brings unexpected changes to life in Canada, and for no one more than women. Women shed domestic roles for paid positions in factories and shops.
World War I was enormously important in terms of the evolution of women's roles in Canadian society. And for many women, it spelt emancipation.
Our thriving munitions industry employs more than 30,000 women.
Women got a chance to enter the labor force in a way they had never been able to do before. It didn't just change their own perspective of themselves, it changed the way society viewed them and viewed what they were capable of doing.
When the war begins, only 5 nurses serve in the Canadian forces. By 1918, 2,500 Canadian women have signed on as nursing sisters overseas.
As a young woman, can you imagine the opportunity to really go to the front lines, to prove your mettle, to test yourself, to court danger? It's not so different from that which would motivate a young soldier.
Eleanor Thompson enlists shortly after nursing training in Montreal. Meta Hodge also signs up, motivated after her 2 brothers are killed on the front. As part of the Canadian Army Medical Corps, they earn the rank and pay of a lieutenant, a privilege not shared by other Allied nurses.
Meta, can you give me a hand with this?
Thompson and Hodge have come to the battlefield to save lives. They'll be lucky to escape with theirs. May 1918, at No. 3 Canadian Stationary Hospital in Doullens, France, Eleanor Thompson and Meta Hodge tend to the daily flood of injured soldiers. Desperate and determined, the Germans have launched a series of aggressive attacks. Thompson and Hodge hear German bombs falling in the nearby village almost nightly. Allied casualties have skyrocketed. In a single day, Thompson and Hodge care for hundreds, sometimes thousands, of wounded. Skin seared by gas attacks. Bodies bullet-ridden. Studded by shrapnel. Limbs blown off.
The fighting on the Western Front was industrialized warfare of a whole new scale and magnitude. Soldiers were being killed and injured and maimed in ways that they had never seen before.
Our nurses, they are dealing with physical and mental and spiritual trauma. They're improvising constantly. They are soldiers in their own right. And then they're a target.
Just past midnight on May 30th. The quiet is broken by the whine of a military aircraft.
Royal Flying Corps? I don't think so.
For 50 years, the Geneva Convention has outlawed any attack on hospitals.
That's a German plane.
A flare dropped by the pilot should illuminate the large red crosses, making it off limits.
Germans, get inside, quick!
A bomb strikes the hospital dead on. An operating theater is obliterated. Thompson is hit by debris. Hodge's leg is torn open.
Eleanor!
Their ward is on fire and threatens to collapse. And 1,000 helpless patients are trapped inside the burning building.
This calls upon every level of their education, their personal mettle, their vocation, and their courage, and their ordinary humanity.
Thompson and Hodge work through the night, fighting fires and guiding panic-stricken patients through the wreckage to safety.
The nurses gave everybody hope, and that took tremendous courage in times when it seemed absolutely improbable that you would survive.
32 men and women are killed by the initial blast. But no other lives are lost, thanks to the nurses' heroic efforts. Thompson and Hodge are awarded the Military Medal, the first Canadian women to receive a wartime decoration for valor.
We recognize their actions, not only as women, but as persons, you know, equal to everybody else. So we should celebrate heroic actions so that they can become models for the next generation.
The war helps change Canada's perception of women. By the time Thompson and Hodge return home, women will have the vote. 3 years later, the country will elect its first female member of parliament. But first, the war has to be won. A war that started on horseback is now being fought in the skies. The Wright brothers flew their first aircraft in 1903. 15 years later, the airplane has become a deadly and feared weapon. The master of this aerial mayhem is Germany's legendary flying ace, the Red Baron. He prowls the skies, hunting Allied airmen. He has 80 kills.
Baron von Richthofen, the German ace, was the highest scoring ace on the Western Front. He was widely feared. He and his German fighters wreaked havoc among the Allied flyers.
April 21st, 1918. 24-year-old Edmonton native Wilfred Wap May joins the fight in Europe with dreams of becoming an air ace. Today marks his second mission in the air. The average lifespan of a new pilot is 11 days. May knows the odds are stacked against him. Within 30 minutes of takeoff, May finds himself in the sights of the Red Baron.
And this is almost a death sentence for anybody. Wap May is trying to shake the Red Baron, who's firing at him. And it really looks like Wap May is going to be killed here.
In a death-defying move, which May later claims was inexperience, he nosedives and loses the Baron. Seconds later, the Red Baron is shot down. Who killed him, nobody knows. Germany's hero is dead. May flies away unscathed, and an instant legend.
I mean, almost nobody survives an encounter with the Red Baron.
Wap May's tour is almost over, but his greatest act of courage lies ahead of him, in the skies over northern Alberta. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918, the guns on the Western Front finally fall silent. Across the nation, our collective sacrifice turns into mass jubilation.
The vanguard of the Allied assault that won that war in the fall of 1918 was Canada. Every day we fought a battle, and in the end, we carried the day.
Survivors like Wap May are given a hero's welcome. Over 60,000 Canadians have lost their lives in Europe. 172,000 are wounded, and over 9,000 suffer from shell shock, what today is called PTSD.
That war blew a hole through this country, and then we had to stitch it back up together again as Canadians. And I think it, as awful as it was, it had an awful lot to do with making us what we are.
We are proud of our role in securing victory and our new recognition as a nation of heroes. Heroes like Wilfred Wap May. In Edmonton, he and his brother set up Canada's first licensed airline. May stages air shows and high-flying stunts, then establishes the country's first bush plane service. 10 years after the war, the nation's beloved flying ace makes history a second time. In the skies over Canada. New Year's Day, 1929. Little Red River, Alberta, has been hit with the deadly disease, diphtheria. The disease is spreading fast. One man is already dead. A doctor sends an SOS to the only man who can deliver a life-saving serum in time. Wilfred Wap May accepts the mission, prepared to serve his country once again.
There is that basic, inherent, social sense that we have, which is that we are all connected. We simply are responsible for one another, and I think that kicks in for most of us.
Contact! May and co-pilot Vic Horner embark on a virtual suicide mission, a 900-kilometer flight in the dead of winter, in the unprotected open cockpit of an Avro Avian. It's minus 30 degrees Celsius. When they hit gusting winds and snow squalls. Within hours, the cockpit's instruments freeze over. May keeps flying blind, on sheer instinct.
He felt compelled to bring this medicine to this community. He had to fly, and he found ways to do it.
Reports of May's flight reach radio station CJCA in Edmonton.
Wilfred Wap May, World War I vet and local pilot, is in the air as we speak.
The station dubs his mission, the race against death.
Stay tuned for updates, listeners, as we learn more. We'll be right back after these messages.
The story goes coast to coast, broadcast into kitchens and living rooms nationwide. Radios, used for strategic communication in World War I, are now widespread.
What's absolutely fundamental to Canadian identity was how radio became so essential as a way to try to connect this vast geography, this community of communities.
May doesn't know it, but the nation is following his every move.
A caller reports seeing the plane just south of Peace River. Wap May is on his way.
Rooting for a beloved war hero to survive the journey and save the people of Little Red River.
I think Wap May made that journey because people needed help and he cared. But also, he did it because he believed he could do it, that it was an incredible challenge, and he was probably one of the few that was able to accept it and to meet it head on.
One day after takeoff, flying ace Wap May and co-pilot Vic Horner achieve the impossible. They touch down in Fort Vermilion.
Do you have the serum? Right here, Doctor.
And deliver the life-saving serum. Little Red River will be inoculated, and a community will be saved.
People live because of that. What an incredible act, what a heroic act, and it's a Canadian act.
Once again, May is given a hero's welcome home.
A Canadian is someone who cares. They actually really care. Not just about themselves and their family, but they care about their neighbors, whether those neighbors are across the street, across the country, or the other side of the world.
Canada's accomplishments in World War I leave us transformed. We are competent, self-reliant, ready to take our place on the world stage. In the post-war era, new industries will create seemingly limitless opportunity. Growing cities will generate unprecedented wealth, but Canada will unexpectedly face new challenges. Economic collapse, chronic poverty, and how to care for those left behind.